afternoon. Welcome to week 5, and we're still working on our PLAR history. So this is week 5, class 1, and it's Tuesday, March 5th. Just a couple of reminders on, next week we do have a March break. So after this week, we will be off from the 11th to the 15th of March, and then we will resume with week 6 on the 18th. To participate live, you can call our radio studio here at 1-800-465-7144 or 737-4017, or you can log into Zoom. Remember, all PLAR students can participate in these live classes, whether you registered for radio or IL. You can also tune in by listening to 91.9 FM, or you can check out Bell Express View 972. So just a reminder that these are audio only. So you'll be able to listen in on the classes, however you will not see what I'm presenting on my desktop. You can also go to YouTube and watch classes. So for all the PLAR, PLAR history, PLAR geography, PLAR math, PLAR science, and PLAR English. And all PLAR packages are the same whether you are registered in radio, Zoom, or IL. And you can continue where you left off. So if you go to any of the videos on YouTube, you can see the our profile name. So for myself, it's J. Mercer Wassa. For Bonnie, it's B. Osmond Wassa. So we both have playlists, and under the playlist, you can view the classes. PLAR Science 1B will have all 16 videos for the 2023-24. So if you're working on your PLAR Science, continue where you left off, and then you can watch those videos if you are requiring more help, or you can certainly call me. If you're already working on your PLAR Geography, you can go to the PLAR Geography playlist and watch the videos there. If you are working ahead with PLAR History, you can go to the PLAR History 1A, and all of the videos are there for you to watch. So same thing for Bonnie. She has the playlist for PLAR English and the PLAR Math. Okay, and these classes are searchable. That means you don't need to be given the link. You can just go to YouTube and put in our profile names, and you will be able to find us. If you don't have access to internet or Wi-Fi, you can certainly ask for a USB of classes. So we'll provide you with a flash drive with the downloaded classes. So when you get the flash drive, put it in a USB port, and then you will see that the lessons are organized by the component. So PLAR History, for example, then it will give you the lesson, and then it will give you the lesson number. So with PLAR History, there are 3 lessons, and then it will give you the key questions, and history has 41 key questions. So for example, with this video, it has PLAR History Lesson 2, key questions 22 to 30. So if you're having any problems with, say, key question 25, then you would watch that particular video. And these classes, so if you have them on a flash drive, you can view them on your laptop, television, Xbox, or PlayStation. And we continue to gather names. So at the end of Term 2A, WASA will have 2 student draws. So we have one for students who earned a credit. So if you have already earned a credit between now and, let me see here, the Term 2A started February 5th. It will end April 12th. So if you have submitted anytime after February 5th and have already earned a credit, then your name will go for the Dell laptop. If you're submitting work, your name will go into the draw for the iPad mini. So be sure to submit your work to your teacher to be entered into the draw. Students who are working on more than one course will have their names entered for each subject they submit work for. So if you have submitted 10 lessons already, then you have 10 entries with your name on it. Looking at the course calendar for PLAR History, Geography. So week 5, I have lesson 3, History, Canada 1960 to 2000. We might finish most of lesson 3 today. So then we will start with lesson 1, Geography, on Thursday, just before the break. So after the break, then we will continue, like I said, week 6. You have only 2 lessons for PLAR Geography, and then depending on how well you complete the lessons, then you will be eligible to write the culminating. So remember, the culminating activity happens at the end of the lessons. So a good idea is to submit your work as you complete them. Make sure you call me or contact me, however, or whichever is the easiest way for you to get to contact me, whether by Facebook Messenger, you can call me, you can email me. And once you start submitting work, you will receive a mark sheet as shown here on the screen. So it shows lessons 1, 2, and 3. Key questions 1 to 18 is for lesson 1. Key questions 19 to 33 is for lesson 2. And then we have a short set of key questions for lesson 3. Key questions 34 to 41. Remember, the support questions are for practice, so answers are at the end of this lesson, which means you don't need to submit those for marking. For the culminating activity, remember, you have to get 50% or over. Your DEC or myself will give you the culminating activity to complete. Equivalent credits are granted to students based on individual assessments. So you have to do the culminating activity. And for those students who already have the culminating activity, you should complete and return them to me so that you can get your equivalent credit. So different options for you to submit your work. You can scan your work using your iPhone Notes app, and make sure you either email or send through Messenger. When you're emailing, make sure you use studentwork@nnec.on.ca and CC to the teacher that's marking your work. Another option is simply taking a picture and sending it through Facebook Messenger. If you were having problems this morning doing that, Messenger was down, but it's up and running again. You could also send it through Google Classroom. So a couple of ways to do that. When you're in Google Classroom, you can either share it or you can turn it in. So whichever way you find easier for you. When you turn it in, it's just like when you're handing in your assignment. When you share it, that means I'm able to see what you're doing with your work. So either or. So if you forget to turn it in, but you share it with me, I will just let you know that you have shared it with me. So the share button, there's a lock feature. So if it's locked, that means it's only private or can be seen by you. So you need to click on that, and then you will put in my email address there in order to activate the share feature. Another option is, if you want to, you can have your DEC scan or fax your work, or if you're stopping by or if you're around Sioux Lookout, you can drop it off at 74 Front Street. There is an outdoor mailbox at the side entrance, so you can just put that in there. Make sure you put your name on your work so that we know who it came from. Alright, so let's continue Lesson 3, Canada 1980 to the present. From our last class on Thursday, we did look at the Canada Act and the Meech Lake Accord on page 4. So we will continue with Free Trade, page 5, Canadian Women in Politics, pages 6 to 8, the Oka Crisis on pages 8 to 9, Royal Commission on Aboriginal People on page 9, and probably as far as Idle No More on page 10. So we might not finish it this afternoon, but we will finish it by the end of this week. Learning goals. Keep this in mind. I can describe Canada's economic history since the 1980s, and I can explain the impact of 9/11 on Canada. I can identify significant political contributions of Canadian women. And finally, I can describe significant events in the relationship between Indigenous peoples and the Canadian government. So turning to page 4. No, actually we did page 4, so page 5. So we're looking at free trade. So a couple of terms to look at. First, let's look at the term or the word tariff. Now, tariff means it's a tax or duty that a government charges on goods coming into or going out of their country. Okay, so it's a tax, okay, that is placed on by the government. So if you have something coming into Canada or going out of Canada, there's a tax on it. So here's an example. Country A, you have a towel that's made in country A and it costs $12 to make that towel in country A. Country B decides to sell their towels in country A. Okay, so remember it's coming from country B. It only costs $10 to make it in country B. So now what happens to make it even? A 20% tariff of $2 is added to the price. So now both towels will sell for $12. So country A has a towel, costs them to make $12. Country B, it only costs $10, but when it's exported to country A, then it now sells for $12. So with the free trade, it was initiated so that goods could be traded between countries without taxes. Who proposed it? Prime Minister Brian Mulroney proposed a free trade agreement with the United States. The free trade agreement was between the United States and Canada in 1988, but then Canada and the United States included Mexico in the trade and formed what's called the North American Free Trade Agreement, or NAFTA. And it became law in January 1994. Okay, so that's all in your book on page 5. So if you're wondering, what does NAFTA do? So again, NAFTA is the North American Treaty Organization. It is the largest free trade zone in the world, so goods and services can move back and forth between all three countries without being taxed. So you don't have to, add a 20% tariff or anything like that. It just goes back and forth without imposing any taxes on the goods that are moving. So allows free movement of goods and services, again between these countries, United States, Canada, and Mexico. It provides competition in the free trade areas. It also increases investment opportunities for member countries. It protects the property rights of people and businesses in the community. It solves problems that comes up between the member countries, and it encourages cooperation between the member countries. So it has some advantages, but there are also concerns. So turning to page 5 and 6. So what are the concerns? Well, many business people supported the idea, but some also disagreed with NAFTA. One of the concerns was that workers in Mexico were often not unionized, which meant that they can be paid a lot less to work. So this would cause many businesses to move to Mexico and still produce their products much more cheaply. Another concern, American companies operated factories in Canada because the American dollar is stronger, which meant that it was cheaper to pay labor in Canada. So when this happens, these factories are known as branch plants. Okay, that's on page 5 and 6. So you can see on the screen there's some demonstrations. They have these posters or placards says bad for workers on both sides of the border. So since NAFTA, Canada has negotiated free trade agreements with many other countries, including Chile, Colombia, Peru, South Korea, and Israel. Canada continues to negotiate free trade agreements. So looking at both the pros, so what's good about free trade, and the NAFTA cons, so the disadvantages, so the good and the bad. Let me just fix the spelling. Okay, so disadvantages or cons. Look at the pros first. So what was good about it? Well, the free trade increased the sales for US, Canada, and Mexico, which meant that it built up their economy or strengthened it. Lack of tariffs allows countries to sell its goods in the other countries at lower prices, making their products more competitive. So again, taking off that tax, then they're able to have goods moving in or out, and it makes their products more competitive, which means that they don't have to worry about that people will buy something because the same product is cheaper. Okay, because if it were taxed, just like that towel, then more than likely someone is going to buy towel B because it was only $10. Another pro is that it created jobs in Mexico. It reduced inflation by decreasing costs of imports. It made it easier for Americans to purchase Canadian and Mexican goods, and vice versa. It increased real wages in all three countries. It increased trade between member countries, and American and Canadian companies can take advantage of lower Mexican labor costs while still maintain corporate entities in home country. So remember, labor costs were cheaper if it were done in Mexico. So that's one advantage of doing that, or having NAFTA. Disadvantages: well, Mexican workers benefited less than American or Canadian workers. So that's in response to the Mexican labor costs were lower. There were no regulations on customs. Americans have lost jobs to foreign soil. Illegal immigration still continues to grow. U.S. trade deficit, so deficits means it's a loss, that has gone up. Factories called maquiladoras are built on the Mexican border, and workers are hired there at much lower wages than a worker would be paid in the U.S. Okay, so those are some of the disadvantages for having NAFTA. In 1995, Canada became part of the World Trade Organization, okay, also known as WTO. So the World Trade Organization, this was an international organization. What it does is that it regulates trade between countries who are members. It also provides a forum, so it's a place for dispute resolution. Many activists and environmentalists, they have criticized the WTO, or World Trade Organization, because it does not do enough to respect the rights of workers or protect the environment. So again, this was created in 1995, and it tried to resolve trade disputes between countries. It can actually force countries to pay fines or uses sanctions. And a sanction means it's a penalty, and often it's an economic penalty taken to pressure a government to agree to carry out certain actions to receive specific benefits. So we can do key question 36. So remember, you don't need internet or Wi-Fi to look for the answers. They're all in your book. So key question 36, what does WTO stand for, and what is its purpose? So two parts to this question. So you want to answer the first part, WTO stands for, and then provide your response. The second part is, what is its purpose? So you want to include its purpose, what is it set out to do, what is it about. So write your answer on the second line. Okay, and that's worth 2 marks. Okay, let's continue with next topic, Canadian women in politics. So remember, way back in the early 1900s, women didn't have a lot of rights. They were not able to vote and so on. So in the 20th century, hang on 1 second here. Okay. So Canada has witnessed women's growth throughout the 20th century. Women at first were limited to their lives. So we saw that. They were forced to work menial jobs. That meant that there were only specific jobs that they were expected to do. Remember, nannies. They worked as clerks, telephone operators, and basically they had no say. Women have since earned the right to vote and work at jobs as equals with men, and women have become highly involved in politics. So we are going to look at, for Canada, so just like what the title says, Canadian Women in Politics, Canada has had 5 female Governor Generals and 1 female Prime Minister of Canada. So the Governor Generals, we have had Jean Sauvé, Adrienne Clarkson, Michelle Jean, Julie Payette, and Mary Simon. So these are the 5 women that we will look at. First is Jean Sauvé. So she was elected Liberal MP from Montreal back in 1972. Notably, she became the first woman cabinet minister from Quebec. So she was the Minister of the Science and Technology, and she also had the environment portfolio, and she also opened the first daycare on Parliament Hill. In 1980, Trudeau appointed her as the first woman Speaker of the House of Commons. Okay, and then in the spring of 1984, Prime Minister Trudeau announced her appointment as Governor General. Now, she was the first woman to hold the office. She was sworn in on May 14th, 1984. She completed her term of office in 1990. One of her concerns was the concern for youth and peace, and the other concern she had was themes of her mandate was national unity. Okay, up next, after Jean Sauvé, we have Adrienne Clarkson. She held the post of Governor General from October 7th, 1999 to September 27th, 2005. She was the first Chinese Canadian and the second woman to hold this position. She was born in Hong Kong, but she was raised in Ontario. Clarkson's ancestry is from Taishan, Guangdong, China, and since her father was a British subject, he was part of a prisoner of war exchange with the Japanese Imperial Forces. Her family subsequently came to Canada using the Special Circumstances Clause in the Chinese Immigration Act of 1923 that allowed Chinese into Canada during the Second World War in 1942. So if you remember back in lessons 1, that the Chinese had the head tax, and if they came to Canada or immigrated, they were charged a head tax, and then after that there was also the government policy prohibiting Chinese immigrants. So that's why they had to use the Special Circumstances Clause in the Chinese Immigration Act. She was involved in bringing Canadians together, honoring famous Canadians, and promoting Canada through film, art, and literature. Then we have Michelle Jean. She was born September 6, 1957. She was born in Haiti. She succeeded Adrienne Clarkson and became the 27th Governor General of Canada on September 27, 2005. Jean was Canada's first black Governor General, the second person without either a political or military background after Adrienne Clarkson, and the second person from a visible minority, again after Clarkson. She was foreign-born, just like Clarkson, and she is also the first Governor General to be born during the reign of Queen Elizabeth II. Okay, Mary Simon, Her Excellency, the Right Honorable Mary Simon, was sworn in on July 26, 2021 as Canada's first Indigenous Governor General. She is the 30th Governor General since Confederation. She gained national and international recognition for her work on Arctic and Indigenous issues and for her efforts in advocating for Inuit rights, youth education, and culture. So along with fellow Indigenous leaders, we have Ms. Simon actively involved in the negotiations leading to the 1982 patriation. That means patriation is to bring back home of the Canadian Constitution, which formally entrenched Aboriginal and treaty rights in the Supreme Law of Canada. So as of September 2016, Kim Campbell remains North America's only female head of a national government to date. She was also the second woman in history to sit at the table of the Group of Seven, now it's called 38 leaders, the eighth most industrialized countries in the world after British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher. Okay, now she had a short term. She was elected or in office June 25th, 1993, and then she was out November 4th, 1993. So very short, but still she was the only female head of a national government to date. Finally, we have Jody Wilson-Raybould. Jody Wilson-Raybould is a Canadian politician and the Liberal Member of Parliament for the riding of Vancouver-Granville from 2015 to 2021. She is the first Indigenous person to be sworn in as the Minister of Justice of Canada and the Attorney General of Canada. Let me just fix that. So it should say she was the first person to be sworn, not was. So she was sworn in as the Minister of Justice of Canada. Before her career in politics, she was a provincial Crown prosecutor. She was also a Treaty Commissioner and Regional Chief of the BC Assembly of First Nations. She has advocated for environmental, sustainability, social justice, and the rights of Indigenous peoples. So there's a picture of her, and there's also a picture on the bottom. It says Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Jody Wilson-Raybould, then the Attorney General and Minister of Justice. They were at a vigil for missing and murdered Indigenous women on October 4th, 2016, and this was taken at Parliament Hill. Okay, next up is the Oka Crisis. So we're moving along here. Okay, the Oka Crisis. At the turn of the 21st century, Indigenous peoples in Canada, they continued to advocate strongly for recognition of their rights. So we're going to look at one of the most significant examples of First Nations asserting their claims to land, and this happened in the summer of 1990 in the community of Kanesatake in Quebec. So this land included a burial ground. Okay, so that was in 1961, way back in 1961. So just a brief background that there was a 9-hole golf course was built on land that had been claimed by the Mohawk community of Kanesatake. So again, that land included sacred, which was a burial ground. In 1989, the mayor of Oka, which is a town nearby, decided to expand the golf course. So it was originally a 9-hole. They wanted to extend it to 18 holes, and in addition, construct condominiums. So in 1990, the community of Kanesatake in Quebec, Mohawk protesters built a barricade to block road access. So the mayor of Oka asked the provincial police force, which is the Sûreté de Québec, or SQ, to remove the blockade. Police attacked the barricade, shots were exchanged, and a police officer was killed. The army was brought in to take over from the police, and finally, peaceful surrender of the Mohawks happened in September. If you look at the map of the Oka standoff, so the legend here, the black dot is the barricade, the square with the broken lines, that's the disputed land. So there's the Oka Golf Club. There's the disputed land. This is where they wanted to extend to have 18 holes, and then right beside it in yellow is the Mohawk Cemetery. The blockade, so the blockade was on Mercier Bridge, which is right here, and there's one there as well. There's some pictures of the Oka Crisis. Again, it began on July 11th, 1990. It was 78 days. It ended on September 26th. So what was significant about the Oka Crisis? Well, it made Canadians more aware of Aboriginal rights and land claims. Also that they can be protested, so protests in solidarity with the Mohawks were held across the country. There is also the potential for conflict if land claims are not resolved in a timely and just manner. Okay, so we have some lessons to be learned from this crisis. So you can see some pictures. Okay, let's look. Okay, there you have it. Okay, so let's see if we can do some key questions here. So key question 37, what you have to do here is you have to give your thoughts about the historical significance of the following Canadians or politicians. So on the left-hand side is the name of the Canadian politician, and on the right-hand side says historical significance. What did this person accomplish? Why is this person a significant historical figure? So the first one is Prime Minister Mackenzie King. Now, it might not be on this lesson, but Prime Minister Mackenzie King's name comes up in probably lessons 1 and 2. So if you remember what the significance or what did he accomplish, so remember we'll just do this one. During his term, so he and his government if you recall, they introduced the Unemployment Act. And now I put in brackets as a baby bonus. So if you look back on that, that was also called Family Allowance Act. So this was important because he wanted to make sure that Canadians were looked after, and that was he and his government tried to help the citizens. Prime Minister Trudeau, what was significant? Now, it doesn't have to be something positive. It could be something that, you know, why did this person become significant? What was it that he did or tried to do? Number 3 is the Governor General Adrian Clarkson. So again, what was the significance? What did this person try to accomplish? Number 4 is Jody Wilson-Raybould, and then number 5 is Governor General Mary Simon. So those 5 Canadian politicians. Okay, key question 38. It says in 2 or 3 sentences, what you're doing here is you're describing the events of the Oka Crisis. So we just finished doing that. It was on page 10. So this is one of those hand questions. Everything that you need to answer this question you can find on page 10. So it says describe the events. So what happened? You might want to start off. So here's some hints here. Remember, it started with the golf course expansion. And then there was the burial ground, or the Mohawk cemetery. There was a blockade. Okay, and an officer was killed, and so on. So 2 or 3 sentences to describe the events. Okay, and then the last part that we will look at is the Royal Commission on Aboriginal People. This happened after the events at Oka. So the Canadian government established the Royal Commission on Aboriginal Peoples in 1991, and what it did was it studied the relationship between Aboriginal people, the Government of Canada, and Canadian society as a whole. So the Commission's report was released in November 1996, and it had recommendations. Now, most of these recommendations have not been implemented. Again, it was formed in 1991 in response to the failure of Meech and the crisis at Oka. So remember the Meech Lake Accord. The Commission recommended that a renewed relationship between Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal people in Canada be established on the basis of justice and fairness. So here's an example. This was just number 1 for the 1996 Royal Commission, is restore the nation-to-nation relationship, dual citizenship, consolidate Indian bands into original national groups, so 50 to 60 First Nations, settle outstanding land claims, renew and revive treaties, and recognize First Nations autonomous governing authority as a third order of government. It's also significant that in 1996, the final report of the Royal Commission on Aboriginal Peoples, after it was released, it called for the public inquiry into the effects of residential schools upon generations of First Peoples. Okay, so we're going to stop here before starting a new topic. So on Thursday, we will continue looking at Idle No More, and then we have the key question 39 of who founded the Idle No More movement and what were they concerned about. So have a look over. I'll just give you the pages here. if you look over, we did as far as, look at that. This is exactly what I said that, oh actually no, we only got as far as page 9. So on Thursday, before the March break, so we did up to the Royal Commission on Aboriginal People. We'll do Idle No More, Truth and Reconciliation, First Nations Historical Timeline, Canada and 9/11 on page 12, and 13 is the impact of 9/11. Then anti-terror laws on page 13, and LGBTQ plus rights in Canada on page 14. Okay, so we will look at that on Thursday, and then as I said, we will have a break for the week and then come back for week 6. Okay, that's it for today. Have a good afternoon. Miigwech.